All right, good evening, everyone.
Evening, Christopher.
In-house and online, welcome to class number 5.
Mike just says hi.
This is our final class of this series, and in case I didn't announce it last week, I do want to announce the new class. Our next class will not be beginning till September 1st. Why? I have to prepare for it, and I have a conference between now and then, so my schedule's tight. But this class is September 1st through November 17th. That is 12 weeks, and it will be back on Thursdays again. So for those of you that I temporarily confused over the last 5 weeks by switching to a Tuesday, we are going back to Thursdays, and Thursdays will be that normal class time for a while. This class is called the Declination of Astrology, and we're going to really explore the classical mythology and folklore, but from the specific perspective of applying this to charts, looking at the ascendant, the sun and moon in a chart, to get a clear sense of the spiritual mission of each soul. This is going to be based on the works of Socializing and spiritual astrology, but combined with the research done by our member in Australia, Dennis Sutton, who has compiled a wonderful resource of contemporary charts. So hopefully that material will also be up on our website by then and available to all of you. And I just think it's going to be an exciting class because that is what, as a small child, really formed my interest in astrology and ultimately led me in my teenage years to studying it. So I'm excited about that. Any questions? All right. Let us move on. How many times have you seen this? Well, we know at least 5 times. So, basically, we're going around the chart, combining these steps to evaluate. And I know I've thrown 2 curveballs in the last 2 classes. One of a arsonist and serial killer, and the other of a cat. Just to make my point that a chart can be a chart of anything. So you really need to know something about the organism that you're interpreting for when you go to do a reading. No curveballs tonight. We are actually back to working with the chart of a celebrity again. So
You're in the dark.
I'm in the dark. Oh, thank you, Barb. Now I've been enlightened.
Yeah, that should help. I was looking, what was wrong?
So let's note the ruler of each house. Let's look at planets in the house, how the planets governing the cusp of the house, and make our interpretations. Here's the chart for tonight. Hello, Michelle, come in. This is female number 2. So, where do we start when we go to interpret a chart?
The Ascendant.
The ascendant. This is our starting point. Yes, Michelle.
Is it okay though if we just note that this person has a lot of planets on the side where they make the difference?
All right.
Is that okay?
Yes. Okay. What is unusual about this chart? Michelle is going back to our early preliminary steps, which means that at a glance, she cannot ignore the fact that 9 out of 10 planets are falling in the east side of the chart. So this is a woman who molds her environment and circumstances. So we take note. And we might also take note that 6 planets are above the horizon, but there are 4 below. So there is, even though we know this is the chart of a celebrity, it is somebody who is probably trying to eke out some privacy in her existence. because of that. So we will see the formidable public portion of this woman and her great impact on the environment. When we see who it is, we'll actually recognize how this is somebody who has left an imprint on all of us. So, Leo, give me some keywords, someone.
Inspired.
Inspired, okay, we're working with the element of fire here. So this is somebody who's inspired, enthusiastic, energetic.
Creative.
Creative. Leos are creative.
Likes a good life.
Vigor, pride.
Vigor, pride. These are all great keywords. Leo is the lion, so in this case it's the queen of the beast. It's someone who wants to stand out, be in charge. What's the worst quality of Leo?
Arrogant?
Or domination. Arrogance could be one quality. Domination is definitely it. Leos do not like to be in anyone else's shadow. Where do they need to be?
Limelight.
Yes. You know, the keywords I use for Leo are ta-da!
Here I am.
Exactly. Yes, part the curtain and ta-da! So, Pluto falls in Leo in the first house, so how will that impact the personality?
Person.
Transforms through her personality?
Good keywords, Michelle. This is somebody who transforms through the personality. It could also be a transformative personality. Pluto is in the first house, much like the mythological phoenix, which means it burns itself up and rises again from the ashes. This might be a woman who has a personal habit of reinventing herself, and that she could go through intense periods of personal process or change and then reinvent, even to the effect of changing one's appearance with Pluto in the first house. It's not the chameleon-like nature of Neptune, which is, you know, costumes, makeup, and mirrors. But Pluto in the first house is truly going through processes sometimes of sort of restructuring yourself and transformation in order to change. The other thing I always think about in terms of Pluto in the first house is that it's somebody who's typically pushing the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways in which they do this is related to their health or physical body. It might be somebody who's experimenting with diet or fasting or yoga and trying to get into contortionist positions. Whatever it is, where they're just sort of, you know, pushing to see how far they can take themselves.
And the person that's constantly getting their face reconstructed, and would that be part of it?
Worst case scenario could be somebody who is always getting reconstructive surgery. Well, if you were born with some kind of, you know, physical deformity, that could be a great thing, because we judge by appearances, and therefore that could allow you to live comfortably in the world without those snap judgments that others make, like when you're walking down the street and someone says, you know, are you feeling okay? And I'm going to feel a lot better when I smack you. But yes, it could be that type of thing. If it was really afflicted, we might look to see if there was some kind of, you know, habitual, almost picking at oneself. I have known clients who become addicted to surgery.
Right.
And one of the things that happens with that, this may come as no surprise to any of you, but you're actually never perfect.
Right.
Oh, darn.
And yeah, oh darn. And what happens when you want perfection?
You're disappointed.
You are, and you just keep, you know, if I just have this, or if I just have that. it'll all be better. But that's not this woman as far as I know. Now the sun is the co-ruler, which falls in the 11th house of friends and associates and hopes and wishes and groups and clubs and organizations. So we might say that her personality is one that is strongly impacted by her friends and associates. And I might also guess that this is somebody who has a great impact as well on her friends and associates.
So she uses her personality, the strength of her personality, to work toward her humanitarian goals.
That would be another thing, though I don't know specifically if this is someone who is public about humanitarian goals. Some of you, when we get to the biography section, might know who this is better than I. But though I'm not aware of that, it does not mean that that isn't in existence. Okay, so anything anyone else wants to say about the first house? Keyword for Leo, I will. This is somebody who sets her mind to something and carries through with it, and it's sort of, moved to the second power with Pluto there in the first house. This desire to move resolutely towards accomplishment of some type, personal accomplishment, skill, ability, talent.
On the negative side, would she be then maybe able to coerce her friends because Pluto's in the first house and her sun is in the 11th?
I wouldn't stop there.
Okay.
With Pluto in the first house, you have the option of actually being able to coerce everyone.
Right.
Or you have the option of being able to gain their cooperation, for which there is a difference. Coercion can oftentimes come through the trading of favors. Well, I did this for you and I really need to call in this favor right now. Or there's coercion by guilt. Oh, go out and have a good time. I'll just sit here in the dark. Don't change the light bulb before you go. There's that type of coercion. I mean, there's any variety of coercions, but this is someone, and again, Pluto, let's look at that in terms of power. 13.9% of the power, the dominant planet, seconded by the sun. So this willfulness and desire to get one's way, whether it's just through the self-absorbed acquisition of skill or through gaining the cooperation of others, voluntary or forced, is powerful here. All right, Saturn in the second house. Money, finance, personal possessions, values. Is she going to be poor?
No.
We certainly say where Saturn falls, you have poverty. But I've actually experienced, I think, more millionaires who have Saturn in the second house than with Jupiter there. Any ideas why?
She motivated by fear of lack.
Yeah. She wants to save.
Saturn saves, Jupiter spends. Or Jupiter makes, but doesn't hold on. So Saturn in the second house, there could actually be the safety urges are tied up with concerns about money, finance, and income. And because Saturn is the geriatric planet, this could pertain to fears / concerns about how one might live in their latter years. Will they be comfortable? Will they have assets? Worst case scenarios with this is things such as hoarding.
I was going to ask you, I think Saturn in the second house has something that...
It does have a tendency towards hoarding, which, can be anything from old newspapers, rubber bands, balls of string, anything you perceive as being useful someday. I remember several years ago seeing a news story about a woman in Israel who bought her mother a brand new mattress. Her mother had been sleeping on this old mattress for 20 years, and the daughter thought, I'm going to surprise her, and I'm going to buy her a brand new mattress. And the old mattress was carried off to the dump. When the mother got home, she nearly had a heart attack because she had stuffed the Israeli equivalent of $1 million into this mattress over the years.
Oh, no. Wow.
Yeah, it's like one of those O. Henry stories, you know? It's just...
That would suck.
I think it would have been heavy when they picked it up.
Paper money versus...
$1 million?
Yeah. Maybe it was large notes.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, so that's extreme. That's not this one, but that could be the extreme. But Saturn's in Virgo also, so I would imagine she has the ability to balance a checkbook.
And have many accounts.
Or many accountants.
Or many accounts. Which you can
Yeah.
analyze it all.
This will be someone who has some degree of efficiency in dealing with money matters. Now, Saturn in the second house, what are they usually shopping for?
Bargains.
A bargain. The determining factor is quite frequently price. Even if you have a lot of money, you may still clip coupons or shop around.
I just wanted to ask real quickly, since it's a second house and Saturn's there, I just can't help but look at the power of it. And since it's not a very high power compared to the height, so like the second on the bottom, I would think that Saturn is not giving a lot of power there.
We're looking at Saturn,
But the first house, the second house.
and then the second house is fifth in power.
Yes.
So Saturn, among her planets, is not powerful. The only thing weaker is Jupiter. But the house itself is powerful due to the influence of the sun. Now, let's move to the sun. And I think that's really excellent. I'm glad you're actually thinking independently.
Fine.
And looking at these things, because when you're doing a reading for someone, this is exactly what you're doing. You're assimilating all of this information. You're looking here, but you are also looking here, and you're looking here to create an entire concept. In a class, we break it down into pieces, but the astrologer giving a session has to assimilate all of that and then deliver it to the client. So the Saturn itself is weak. So what one could gather from that is perhaps the covetousness nature or the avaricious nature of Saturn is low on the scale. That's not the urge that drives this woman. But with the sun as the co-ruler, how would that affect someone in regards to finances? This might actually describe this woman more thoroughly than Saturn, since it is so powerful in the chart.
She's got a lot of energy and vigor to have more money, resources, and such.
Well
Motivation.
Motivation.
Well said. There is motivation. That is energy, vigor, resources. It's your motivation. And why? Your sense of self-esteem or pride is associated with that. You measure whether or not you're successful by, are you receiving reward or are you not receiving reward for your efforts?
And could she get some of her wealth or her whatever, or her ability to make money through 5th to 11th house endeavors?
Right, which would be friends, groups, clubs, organizations. In fact, there are some astrologers that actually consider the 11th house to be one of the houses of money. So often we think second house, personal finance, 5th house, speculation, risk-taking, gambling, stocks. 8th house, other people's money, legacies, inheritances, and your long-range planning, such as Social Security, not sure if that's planning, IRAs, pensions, etc. But the 11th house is the resources as they come to us from others. You know, as I always say, all of my good comes to me from God through the assistance of other people. Because generally, unless one, I mean, even if you inherit, you're inheriting from another person. If you gain employment, there is somebody that's employing you. If you have a private practice, as I do, then you are dependent on your social resources as a means of cultivating that. And quite often, it's dependent upon word of mouth activity to generate that. So the 11th house, in some ways, although it's not specifically stated in Hermetic astrology, I do like to look at it as a potential avenue of resource. And in this woman's chart, it is specifically so. And there are some industries in which people work where it is as much having talent, ability, skill, as it is whom you know that determines your ability to get ahead. In fact, many persons who have had incredible achievements in life financially will oftentimes talk about a luck factor. That not only did they have an idea, an invention, a discovery, a creative talent. How many people out there can sing? A whole lot more than that have gold records. And there's only in certain areas, such as entertainment and the arts, one of the reasons I think it's tied in with speculation and gambling is the pinnacle of those who achieve some modicum of success in those areas is very small compared to the body of talent that exists out there. So it's the luck factors falling into place that make those things happen. 3rd house. Mental pursuits, private thoughts, early education.
Friends and relatives?
Friends and relatives, siblings and relatives. Not friends, but neighbors.
Short journeys.
And short journeys.
Is an astral projection a short journey?
Depends on how long you're out.
Neptune, you know.
That 20-minute nap at lunchtime might be a short journey.
Okay.
You better get the information fast and bring it back.
So she would say, well, I don't remember school, but I remember all my friends and all the stuff they taught me. And Neptune.
I find that, no, I think that's a good perception. I actually find Neptune in the 3rd house oftentimes makes for a daydreamer.
Oh.
Can't concentrate?
You can, but it's usually not on what they're teaching in class.
Yeah, not on the physical plane.
Your focus is elsewhere, usually out the window. One of the downsides that I see with Neptune in the 3rd house is when it comes to driving. One can drive impaired without being intoxicated.
Right. We see a lot of that.
Yes. And Neptune in the 3rd house can actually make one go onto automatic pilot when they get into a car. Have you ever driven somewhere on a Sunday but taken the route you take to work?
Oh, no.
No?
That's not a good idea.
All right. Well, some people do. Some people will just get on the road and they will head in a pattern to where they're going and then suddenly realize that this is just habitual. This is an ingrained pattern and not where they intended to go. And that's kind of a Neptune in the 3rd house experience. Well, would she lack for imagination?
No.
No.
great imaginative mind, theatrical mind, dramatic mind,
Creative.
and creative mind. Neptune is visionary in nature. It is altruistic, it is utopian, it's idealistic.
Could she be spiritual in her thinking?
Yes, Neptune in the third house could lean one towards spiritual paths in thinking, or fascinated with everything from, mystical matters to telepathy.
And
What else would she think about? Let's look at the co-ruler. Virgo means Mercury's the ruler in the 11th house of friends.
Thinking about those friends again.
Yes, since you mentioned earlier in school, she was there. May not remember the classes, could remember the friendships.
Could name all those people she was hanging out with.
Right, you give her the photo album from junior high and she might know the names of many.
Are we allowed to know the year this person was incarnated?
Yes, would you like the chart so you can follow along
Okay.
with the rest of us?
49.
Some of those clues you can actually derive from looking at a chart because of the movements of Pluto. Pluto is one of the best indicators to tell you when someone was born, since it takes basically 200 years plus to get from here back to here again. You can almost always look at a chart and determine the date once you've looked at enough charts and know the degree of Pluto in any given year. It'll stick with you. And that and Neptune are the two telltale signs of a chart. Okay, 4th house, home, family, real estate, property, early childhood.
Still with
Libra.
this is social.
She wants a pretty house.
Wants a pretty house, yes. Libra ruled 4th house. Not only wants beauty in the home, what else do they want in the home?
Harmony.
Harmony, tranquility, peace.
Aesthetics are important.
The aesthetics are important in the home. The furnishings are important. The paint chips that you choose from are important. The fabric samples that eventually go to your upholstery become important. But having peace, harmony, tranquility in the home is also important. Now, Venus falls in the 12th house, which sometimes can create a childhood where one plays quietly and alone. When you think of 12th house influences. Another indicator when the 4th house ruler is in the 12th house, sometimes it can create an absence of parentage. I was looking at the chart of a client yesterday that had a similar arrangement in the chart, and I said, were you separated from your parents at all as a child? Or was there, some instance of your father being absent? And she said, well, I was adopted 5 hours after being born. And I did not get to meet my birth parents until I was in my 20s. So I don't believe that is the case with this woman, but that can create some either secrecy around parentage, the desire for someone, though, who is obviously social, may also really love her private time. So even as an adult choosing a home, this is somebody who might want to live on a cul-de-sac, in a cabin in the woods, in a gated community, behind a tall wall or in some ways in seclusion. The home needs to be a sanctuary, a getaway, a place of privacy. Fifth house. Love, romance, children?
With passionate
Scorpio.
Scorpio. She desires those things. Pluto's in the first.
All right, unoccupied, Pluto, Mars, the rulers. The fifth house is moderate to weak in power. It's 8th in power, 3.7. Nevertheless, is this somebody that might seek creative self-expression
Yeah, for her personality.
through her personality or through her appearance? Why? Because the chief ruler of the fifth house expresses through the first house. It becomes a personal need for self-expression.
And takes action through 11th house endeavors.
Groups, clubs, organizations, friends. What about relationships with one's children? A weak fifth house can sometimes represent a lack of children, but nevertheless, the sign on the cusp is I desire.
Well, she may desire them, but that doesn't necessarily mean she is going to stay with them or be a good parent or...
And I would actually disagree, because when the ruler of the fifth falls in the first, there is a great inclination to put your children's needs first. No pun intended.
They're a reflection of her.
Exactly. So it could actually make somebody who might be a little bit of a stage mom. But definitely, this is the child's needs. I'm putting my needs aside in order to look after them. If this was really discordant, it could possibly be the other way around, where someone might abandon children in order to just do what they want to do. Sometimes you'll hear about mothers who will leave, 3 children home alone to go out cavorting at bars and nightclubs. And there's no one there looking after the infants. All you have to do is watch the news at 10.
Unfortunately.
Plenty of examples. But I don't think that is the case here.
But her Scorpio is pretty low and it's discordant, not majorly. I mean, it's 0.01, so it's not really a lot or anything.
Yeah, we'd call it neutral.
Neutral.
1/10 of a
1%.
astrodyne point. Yeah, that's sort of night. That's just barely. It's a hair's breadth of discord. But it is weak, so desires for children might not be paramount, except for the fact that it becomes a personal desire. It's in the first house. This is something I am compelled to do. I have to do. Now, the house of work is governed by both Jupiter, and with Capricorn on the cusp, Saturn becomes the co-worker. Can she make money through her work?
Oh, yes.
Will she be well compensated for her work?
Yes.
More than likely. Will she be drained through her work?
Yeah, Jupiter's.
Yes. She has an opposition there.
The Jupiter opposes her ascendant. So, Jupiter in the 6th house, you tend to give above and beyond the call of duty. Why might one do that?
They feel duty bound because it's their work.
Saturn is the duty-bound influence. With Jupiter there, you enjoy it so much that you just want to be there doing more. The Saturn rulership is that inherent sense of duty, which Jupiter doesn't have. With Jupiter, it's like, well, this is no fun, I'm not sticking around. Or, I have the greatest job in the world, why would I want to do anything else?
With Jupiter and the opposing the Ascendant, is she able to attract people that bring fortune, that help her have more abundance, or the opposite?
Well, I will tell you this is someone who has attracted a lot of fortune through others. But what I would guess through this is that to gain one's fortune, it may come at some physical or personal sacrifice, because the nature of the opposition is that it pulls. Some people work in jobs where they may work 14, 16 hours a day.
Well, in acting, I mean, I'm always blown away when you think about actors and how much money they make and all this stuff, but then when you realize what they have to do, you know, they're out there for a lot of long hours and sometimes in very nasty weather and whatever is going on in the movie.
And then if you're doing your own stunts,
Yeah. That would
or if you have to alter your appearance. Some
Yes.
people have to rapidly lose weight or gain weight. I think Robert De Niro in Raging Bull had to gain an enormous amount of weight. And so you see this a lot with people in the motion picture industry, actors in the motion picture industry, where you can't make your hair grow any faster, but there's wigs for that. But nevertheless, the being in shape or out of shape, that's oftentimes demanded by a specific role. So there are physical demands in that industry. There are other areas such as sales, where persons may have to work really long hours in order to get the commissions that they want. Or one could work for a nonprofit or a church, to which there is no end to the amount of work or commitment that you might have to give.
Are you saying that because of the Aquarius, Jupiter's in Aquarius,
Mhm.
and it's altruistic and...
Right, and Jupiter tends towards religious
Religion,
work or
philosophy.
benevolent work of some kind. That's certainly one of the aspects or one of the facets of its expression. Now Saturn, we already decided, makes money through employment and could be duty-bound about that. They're paying me, I better stay. Marriage and partnerships.
Altruistic. Futuristic.
Altruistic, futuristic, and the last word?
Know-it-alls.
Unique. Know-it-alls.
Unique know-it-alls. All right. This is someone who might be attracted to genius types, brilliant types, persons both Uranus and Saturn govern. So she may be looking for some type of either financial security through partnership, or might actually become the breadwinner in partnership. This may be the one who actually provides. With Uranus in the 11th house, it could be someone that actually comes through a friend or through a circle of friends. It may be you might marry someone that you have had in your life as a friendship. Quirky, offbeat, unconventional, yet at the same time slightly stable, secure, organized. How much power is that?
2.8. Oh, percentage.
Yeah.
No, it's 24.65 power.
Yeah. which is 2.8% of the total power. Is that a lot of power? No.
Does that mean there's less influence of the houses, influence of the house when it's that low?
Yes, though, Erica, there are certain things that are, biologically hardwired for us. So even persons with weak seventh houses, through virtue of being animals, are inclined to look for mates. Now, the relative success of that is impacted by a variety of things in the chart. But nevertheless, even with a weak fifth house or a weak seventh house, one still may desire partnership, but the opportunities to achieve it can be harder for some. What I've also experienced with clients who have weak seventh houses, even if they are married, what is one of the risks that they run?
It's a weak house.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weak marriage.
Weak marriage, not working for the marriage.
Exactly, not putting effort into it. You can end up sort of taking it for granted, assuming that things are okay, and forgetting to put energy into that area, because where is the energy actually going?
Friends,
Others and self.
themselves.
So this is someone that would have to develop concerns in a mate relationship of not just either being breadwinner or weighing out the fact, are they a contributing partner or not? And or do they look good on my shoulder in social events and things with my friends? There's that remembering to continue to work with this person as your best friend, your best confidant, and being able to enjoy socializing with them. What would happen if this woman's spouse was a stay-at-home?
I think
You
she'd be
wouldn't-
good with it.
Yeah, you wouldn't find her there, though.
She wants to be.
Someone's mowing the lawn. Yeah, ain't me. I'm happy.
It probably would be
Exactly. I mean, she's a Leo. She doesn't want to do it.
probably a more happy relationship that way.
Right?
Yeah, it's hard to say. She is a Cancer. But nevertheless, the emphasis in this chart is the 11th house of friendships and socializing. So this is someone who, to some degree, needs to be around friends and needs social events. What happens if your mate isn't interested in that?
Yeah.
You don't spend any time with them.
I'd be lonely, yeah.
Very lonely.
Well, not entirely. It might be lonely for the mate.
Yeah.
But you got lots of
Yeah,
friends.
you've got friends.
Sorry, honey. But with Saturn expressing through the 7th house, would it be an older person or a person who may be ill, or does that have nothing to do with it?
Skinny person.
Skinny person.
All of the above.
All of
Yes. Saturn, if it falls in
And
the
a
7th
resident
house
person.
or rules the 7th house, there can be an inclination towards having an older mate. Or you could end up with someone that you have to take care of or that suffers from illness. Hold this thought when we get to the biography of this woman. That may actually be applicable. Saturn ruling the 7th house, you can have loss through marriage or partnership, or you can have great sorrows there, even though it's not in your house of sorrows. But Venus is in the house of sorrows, so there are bound to be some areas of sadness or sorrow around love, some remorse or unrequited love or disappointment. It's just part of the mix. Does it necessarily rule this woman's life? I don't know,
Yeah.
but it could be one of the many and varied life experiences that she has accumulated. Aquarius also rules the 8th house, which means
Sagittarius.
there are 2 intercepted signs, Sagittarius in the 5th, Gemini in the 11th. So, just a notation. All right, so the same thing happens in terms of the partner's money. One might gain through inheritance, legacies, inheritances. Saturn falls of other people's money. What else could you get with that? Scholarships, gifts, grants. And then Uranus falls in the 11th house. One, we could assume this woman might have a few friends.
Just a few.
So the likelihood of losing friends also increases.
That's true.
So she may not only have to deal with loss or sorrow through spouse or partner, but that might also be an occasion through friendships as well. Ninth house. Religion, philosophy, the higher mind.
The very, very bottom, huh?
All right, with the ninth house so weak, why might this woman go to college or university?
Why would she?
Because she was forced to.
Forced, yeah.
All right, you could be forced, it may be what is expected of you.
Early.
It might be because you're studying specifically something you know you can use to get a job. Or the co-ruler is Neptune in the 3rd house. Perhaps she's really fascinated in some subject. What does Pisces rule? Give me some themes that might be an academic area of intrigue for this
Well,
one.
there's a cult,
All right, it holds matters of intuition.
Mediumistic.
dreams.
All right, so she may have gone to the University of Spiritualist Studies.
Also, utopian.
Charity, utopian thing, that could be the School of Social Work or the UN School,
Or she was studying drama.
or she was studying drama. That's a possibility with Neptune falling in the 3rd house.
But even though the 9th house has 13.84 power, it still has quite a bit of harmony compared to the rest of the chart. It's like the
Thank
3rd
you.
or the 4th. It still has, I mean,
Let's look here. 11th house is harmonious, 3rd house is harmonious. So even though the 3rd house is not strong, does she like to learn?
Yes.
Yes. And unless we take a look at these things, you might miss something thinking that, oh, this is relatively unimportant to you. But when you look to the dispositors in the chart and where they're located, we get more clues. She might really love spiritualist studies. She might have gone to Ouija board college. Or she might have gone to a university with a great theater arts department.
or it could just be something she learns on her own that she's really enthused about.
Yes, that's the other thing. With the 3rd house, so harmonious, you gain pleasure from learning. And what I'm guessing is rather that she wasn't a space cadet, but perhaps somebody who learned by osmosis. You just put them in the environment, and what do? Drink it up. And that's because of the harmony associated here. That there could be such pleasure in the process of learning that you take it home with you and you continue doing it. And otherwise, we might not have seen that from this chart, because why? This is just so weak. Tenth house of career. The moon in the 10th house.
She
Yeah,
really
Difficult to nail
wants
down
to.
in her career.
Was influenced by her mother in her career.
Travel associated with her career?
And how did you determine that?
Just because the moon is the fastest moving luminary.
Okay, I'll accept that as an answer. Well, the moon brings fluctuations. So that's either going to function in the sense of you either have a lot of different jobs, you change your career a lot, or your career might consist of having a lot of different jobs. Many projects. The moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus.
Kids.
That could work, that moon placement could work very well for a versatile actress, could it not?
Yes, and how would that work?
Because you're this way on one shoot and you're that way on another, and you fluctuate to a scoundrel on the next and a sweetheart on the next.
So you can project many different types of personalities.
Yeah.
Very versatile.
And the moon in the not 10th house actually makes for a household name.
Haha, a household.
But she doesn't have a lot of harmony doing this, because in the Aries, the moon, and the 10th house, they're all minus.
They're all.
And what's with that? The moon's exalted in Taurus, but it semi-squares the sun. It does form a sextile to Venus. It semi-squares Uranus, in conjunct Neptune, and it squares Pluto and the Ascendant. So, this, look at that, 14 Taurus to 14 Leo. Do you think that is a strong aspect? Well, I actually think it's the strongest aspect in her chart, other than, there's two others, which are parallels. A parallel from the moon to Mercury, and a parallel from the sun to Venus, which are more powerful. So, this is somebody who could be incredibly versatile in terms of projecting different types of female images. Well, that would work well in what other industry? Spy versus spy. With Pluto involved, which has to do with secrets and espionage and all of that.
Spy.
Politician.
Definitely. She'd still have to play a lot of different roles.
Right.
She's a spy.
Dun, 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 dun. All right.
It's not Patty Hearst, is it?
I don't think so. I don't see the
Oh, okay.
seven-headed.
It is an actress. I didn't catch that.
It's an actress.
We haven't determined
Too
that.
young to be
We're trying to figure out what this is.
Like that, it might be. Oh, okay.
She's too young to be Philistine.
I was thinking socialite, but she's not old enough for that, really. Like a Gloria Vanderbilt or a Emily Post. She's definitely not old enough for that.
But would she have manners?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And the friends to do all of that sort of thing with.
Mars is the co-ruler of the house of career. One might have tense relationships with their mother growing up. Later in life, she could become the best friend.
Right.
One could have conflicts with bosses, superiors, authority figures. Or one might even fight their reputation.
What do you mean when you say that? Fight their reputation. What does that
Mars combative.
Mars is combative, and sometimes one can get a reputation for something they really aren't.
Slap somebody when, instead of just thinking about it.
Right. I mean, what we all can pass judgments on political people or film stars when they smack a camera-toting paparazzi.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, how could they behave so poorly? And what might any one of us do if somebody was pointing a large instrument in our face?
Run or hide.
We might do the same because it might feel like an invasion. So perhaps one could get a harsh reputation at times, because you pointed out this 10th house, although powerful, is the greatest discord. Now, what if this was somebody who was constantly working on herself? What might she do with her 10th house?
Transform.
She might try to transform it to where it was the area of great discovery for her, or the area where she really worked to find some degree of happiness. And what happens when we have painful areas in our chart?
We work on them.
We work harder.
Yeah.
We work a whole lot harder.
Whether we want to or not, it just
Yes.
happens.
Can't get away from them.
No, it's part of the job description.
Mhm.
They're in your face.
All right, friends.
Man,
Mars,
she's got so
Mercury, Sun, Uranus. Look at that Sun-Uranus conjunction.
very unique.
Even that's more powerful than
Yeah.
the Pluto moon square.
Wow. darn
That's
it.
a strong aspect.
It's in-
But now
it's in
there's
Cancer.
there's two planets there that are intercepted. You know,
Mars
are
and
Mercury.
in Gemini.
And Mercury in its own sign is pretty powerful.
And in this chart, it falls midway down the power grid here.
So the
She talks a
masculine,
lot.
intelligent men won't show up in her life till a little later.
It being latent,
And the friends are in early life being powerfully way out there.
I think you pointed to something. She would like.
Masculine, intelligent types.
That's
The strong and smart type.
And that it poses her fifth house, so she desires it, but I would say it doesn't come to her until later life.
she ends up with the bimbos.
The excessively Uranian ones likely
Yeah.
to cause her
But
disruptions.
and here's another insight that's gained, is that the Sun is in conjunction 1 minute apart with the ruler of her 7th house. So we might jump to the conclusion, just looking at this, like we did about education, no, that's not important to her, but we actually discover it could be. Over here, we can actually see that the self-esteem, the self-worth, the sense of power in her life might really be tied into being with a companion who is also that best friend, that bestest of friends.
But also maybe the Sun conjunct Uranus in Cancer. She's a person that might break the mold about traditional thinking about what a woman should be, of the woman's roles.
Or could be inspired with that powerful conjunction of the Sun and Uranus. You're not only breaking records and breaking roles, but
Innovating.
you're innovating within a system or within a tradition. You're constantly innovating. This is somebody who expresses with great uniqueness and originality. Some might think genius. What I don't know is whether this is somebody who's truly a social butterfly or involved in a lot of charitable causes. With Venus as the co-ruler, that might actually be something she keeps quiet about.
Yeah.
Some people are involved in charitable causes because they do like to see their name on every brick in every cultural foundation. Others like to do it quietly and behind the scenes and not necessarily draw attention. So if that is the case, that's a possibility here. What about Venus in the 12th house?
she's secretive about her emotional
Secret
feelings.
love affairs.
Clandestine love affairs, somebody who may be secretive about their inner life.
And Venus squares Neptune.
And we don't necessarily want to say this is someone who's having clandestine love affairs, because you could have Venus there and not be doing that. But there may be some unrequited love in your life. Somebody that you really loved but never loved you in return. Or whether there's been some
Because
loss
it's
or
a secret
sorrow.
sorrow.
It's a secret sorrow. It's something that you may go to the grave with. One could be a closet case artist with Venus in the 12th house. This might be somebody who has boxes of paintings under her bed that she never takes to the gallery or shows anyone because it's her, personal, private experience.
And it's squaring Neptune. Does she have trouble getting in touch with something about her emotional makeup? From early childhood?
That could be true, or the case when Neptune's involved is Neptune can sometimes work as a bit of an amplifier to anything. So it might be that this is somebody who's the square is a powerful aspect. This is somebody who might easily be able to go in and tap into emotional states and express them to the chagrin sometimes of those around her. It might not be a lack of expressing, but it might be an excess of that.
The person that you always see acting with that's crying, or you see them always upset in the movies or whatever. There's some actress that I've been noticing that every time I see her, she's always crying.
Well, give that woman a box of Kleenex.
She's got Venus in the 12th. No.
Don't get me started.
All right. Well, we've gone through the wheel. What's left to do?
Go home.
No. We gotta have an hour. Note the prominence of each planet and number of aspects received by it. Most powerful planet sign in house, harmonious, discordant. And I like to look at aspects as well. So let's look again. You have the aspects on the back. We decided Pluto's the most powerful planet. Well, for starters, let's look at the more abstract aspects, the parallels. Pluto parallels the Sun, parallels Venus, and parallels Uranus. Those are all very powerful aspects. The parallel is very hard to define, but again, I always describe it as amping up the volume.
Then your vitality is amped with your feminine, artistic side, your unique side, and your universal urges.
Exactly. The other aspects to Pluto are a semi-square to the Sun, might be known for occasional tantrums, or at least offering quiet resistance. Pluto squares the Moon. We already decided that is a powerful aspect. It is 11.54 astrodines. So Pluto is the upper octave of the Moon being home and family. Pluto is the planet of either universal welfare, expressing as cooperation or as coercion. So one might either be the mastermind in the family, or might feel controlled by some feminine element in the family, be it mother or grandmother. Somebody who's setting a very strong role model of what one is supposed to be like.
Has this person ever been incarcerated?
I don't know that to be true.
Okay.
So
then it isn't
we
Martha
hope there was
Stewart.
something steaming.
Oh, it's in order. I think this is too young. Well, was she ever in a mental hospital? I mean, Venus in the 12th could be
I don't know.
emotional issues.
I don't think you'd find that out. think that would be a very hidden thing.
Pro-
As
yeah,
powerful as this
yeah.
person is, that would be a very hidden aspect.
Yeah, that would be shoved down in the records
Right.
somewhere.
But I
Or expunged from the records.
right. But I would think that they learn to be very feminine through their mother, you know, and that could be good or bad, being in the 12th house. It could be sort of the secret sorrow, you know.
Pluto forms a sextile to Mercury, so there are communication skills in place here, where one is able to find self-expression through articulation, especially with Mercury in its home sign of Gemini. This woman can probably enunciate. Pluto forms a sextile to Mars.
So they would work together, and again, that's in a mental sign.
A mental sign and a sign of self-expression. But these make for really positive personal advantages through friends. Transformative friendships. She herself could be acutely intellectual. And here's another area. Even though the 9th house of higher education is weak, Mars, Mercury conjunction in Gemini. Oh wait, we saw that a couple of weeks ago with a, what? Serial killer.
Serial killer, yeah. Uh-oh.
If that, in that case, it was in the 8th, so
Yeah.
that person was
Okay.
acting on his delusions.
All right, and in this case,
They're acting,
they're acting out on their friends.
Or out of their hopes and aspirations and dreams.
Okay, that's a good interpretation.
Hopes and wishes.
All right. Let's look Pluto as the dominant planet in the chart.
extremely powerful.
Powerful, intense is a great, much like the
Yes,
parallel is
pushing
the
the
intensity aspect, the Pluto as the dominant planet is intense.
And it trines the midheaven, so this person is seen as intense, right? I mean,
Very intense. And it opposes, no, that's something else. Okay, let's look at the next dominant planet, the Sun. What else motivates this woman?
Vitality through her friendships.
Vitality, energy,
Power.
vitality through her friends or her hopes and wishes.
yeah, well,
She could be quite energetic. And then Uranus, which is so close in power and so close to the Sun in the chart. They're almost inseparable. Genius, inventive, original thinker, one of a kind, unique, record breaker, but highly independent.
She is, or the people she chooses to be around?
Well, we would say she is because the Sun, which is our rules our self, conjunctive. And what do, independent, powerful people like to be around?
other.
Others like
Birds of a feather.
Yeah.
They flock together. So, yes.
So with Mercury conjunct Mars in Gemini, would that person not be a powerful speaker?
Could be.
I would think so.
I would think so too. I have a guy at work who has that in a different, but it's in Gemini and it's Mercury and Mars, and he's very loud. I mean, you're always hearing him. No matter where you're at in the building, you can hear him, He's very loud, but he has a beautiful voice. I mean, really
Can project.
can
Good
project.
teachers.
He knows how to project,
Yeah.
definitely.
And where would that become useful? What kind of career? Teaching, oratory, ministerial work, or in the
Opera
theater,
singer.
opera singer, anywhere where you have to just project out to your audience. You know, I think of the old 19th century political campaigns where the candidates would just get on a train and go from town to town and speak in public squares. And what would you have to do?
Yeah.
You'd have to speak loudly in order to be heard. All right, let's look for the most harmonious planet, which is pretty easy. It's Neptune. Talk to me of the harmonies of Neptune. Imaginative, dreamy.
But also, doesn't it have to do with advertising and that kind of stuff? So it's about being a performer and projecting yourself in a way.
Yes, it's being able to create an image, being able to enchant in some ways.
And in the third house, that would be a great placement for an actor.
And it affects the midheaven. It's tied into an opposition to the midheaven, which is normally a discordant aspect. But whenever you have oppositions to the midheaven, these hidden planets down at the bottom of the chart do often get pulled into recognition. And the most discordant planet in the chart is the other end of that opposition. What happens when you have a discordant midheaven?
People don't talk nicely about you.
You got it, girl.
Reputation doesn't quite work out.
Yes. If you have a discordant midheaven, it almost doesn't matter how harmonious the rest of the chart is. People will actually find it convenient to speak badly of you.
But isn't it said in the Hollywood business that it doesn't matter if it's good or bad as long as they're talking?
Yes.
Yeah.
They'd say something like, yes, Barbara.
Comments?
From Renee?
Renee said, could she be considered a humanitarian, and she could visualize the ideal.
I would think so, that she is able to visualize whatever she wants to bring into being career-wise. What I don't know, though, is if this woman is a humanitarian. Though there are many factors in the chart that point towards that. All right. The 11th house is the most powerful house. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Friends, acquaintances, groups, organizations, social outlets. The first house, health, physical body appearance. The 10th house, career, honor, reputation. These are the areas of life where her attention is focused. Now, the harmony is tied in with the 11th house. Where will this woman get her joy? From really good friendships, brilliant people, and people who feel like family to her.
And they talk behind her back.
And they might.
Nice.
Or she might even like people who might talk to her face.
Yeah.
The greatest discord in the chart is that 10th house. So it's possible that this woman may never actually be happy with her career. Could be a household name. Could be very ambitious, goal-oriented, given towards accomplishment. But she might never feel completely satisfied. All right, the signs: Cancer, I feel; Leo, I will; Gemini, I think. Libra is the most harmonious. She wants what?
To get along.
Pretty things, or peace, harmony, balance. And Aries is the greatest discord. Well, that's the opposite of Libra, which is fighting and warfare. Competitiveness might be the way to think of it. And perhaps this discord with the 10th house is working in a very competitive environment. Though, when we discover who this is, we might think, well, there's actually no competition here. Okay, let's move forward. I wanted to talk tonight about different aspects, and let's just keep moving. The sextile and the parallel. The sextile is an opportunity compound, 2 planets, 60 degrees or 2 signs apart. This is harmonious. And the opportunities do not come without effort. So where you see sextiles in your chart, unlike the trine you could trip over trying to get out of the room, and it'll bring you some benefit. But the sextile lies there in existence, and it needs applied effort or applied energy to be benefited by it.
Is it more effort you put into it, the stronger it is?
Yes, and part of it is recognizing opportunities when they arise. To not turn them down, but to be able to recognize them as an opportunity and move with it, because they won't always repeat themselves. All right, well, guess what? Yes, we have sextiles. Sun, sextile Saturn. So there's an opportunity compound between the power urges and the safety urges. Opportunities can come from friends to one's finance. There is a sextile between the moon and Venus. So even though Venus can represent sorrows when it's in the 12th house, this is someone that could spin straw into gold and be able to make something from those powerful emotions. I see Moon-Venus sextiles, 14 Taurus to 18 Cancer. They generally express in someone as graciousness. Mercury sextiles Pluto, 10 Gemini to 14 Leo. The intellectual urges are in an opportunity compound with the universal welfare urges. This is someone who can train herself to think constructively, and where friends will come to her aid in terms of realizing personal goals. Mars forms a sextile to both Pluto and the Ascendant, 8 Gemini to 2 Leo and 14 Leo. These are very wide sextiles, but nevertheless they offer some energy to the chart. And Saturn sextiles Uranus. So we have the conservative qualities of Saturn tied into an opportunity compound with the liberal qualities of Uranus, with progressive thinking. So this is somebody that might be able to balance both her conservative and progressive areas of thinking, and therefore not necessarily be threatening to either party. And lastly, there's a sextile from Neptune to Pluto. Well, guess what? Probably everyone in this room has that. So, no surprise there. It's been going on forever. The parallel. I find the parallel the most difficult aspect to give a definition to when interpreting a chart. And I basically, although there are different astrologers that actually use the parallel in interpretation, for me, I generally perceive the parallel as just adding energy in the chart. It is neutral. So like the conjunction, it's very like the conjunction in the sense that it's powerful, only the parallel has only one orb, and that is 1 degree regardless of the house position, and it is measured by north-south declination. these are things that didn't develop over time. But I always compare it to a music amplifier, where you're able to, when a planet is in an aspect with any other planet, and it also forms a parallel, what that does is it amps up the power of that aspect. Here, parallels are always read because they fall in this section of the aspectarian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is a great chart to use as examples of parallels and sextiles because she has plenty of both. The chart we looked at last week was rather weak in the semi-sextile department. I think we found only one to do a delineation on. We don't nearly have the time to do that here, but look at the power of those parallel aspects. The parallel from the Moon to Mercury is 13.59, which quite makes it the strongest aspect of her chart. So here, both the Moon and Mercury rule the mind, and it's in an intensity compound, and they are not forming any hard aspect to one another. Yet this could make for a very powerful mind and a very powerful memory. The next most powerful of these parallels is the parallel of Pluto to Uranus. And that is involved in a semi-square compound. So this is a friction compound between Pluto and Uranus. 0 Cancer to 14 Leo. That's a strong aspect, 1 degree off here. So friction between universal welfare and one's individualistic urges. How could that express?
Do you take other people's needs before yourselves, or that kind
That, or
of
you
thing?
might have tantrums in the sense of trying to express your needs.
Ah. Because
Why?
of
Uranus
Pluto,
is
or-
no. Uranus is outburst, and Pluto is that strong desire to have what you want.
push, push, push,
Mhm.
push.
Push.
Okay.
And it could be that ultimately those tantrums lead towards creating the best product available. But they could be annoying to those around you.
Mm-hmm. Like the actress that's always having tantrums in her little
In
cabinet.
the dressing room.
In the
Yeah.
dressing room.
So, let us reveal.
Master.
Wow. That was Renee's guess about 8:30 or 7:30.
Good job, Renee, at guessing. American actress, star of the stage, television, and the big screen. She has received an unprecedented 11 Oscar nominations for her performances in films, including 1978, The Deer Hunter, 79, Kramer vs. Kramer, 81, French Lieutenant's Woman, 82, Sophie's Choice, 83, Silkwood, 85, Out of Africa, 90, Postcards from the Edge. Have any of you seen any of these films? Is she a household name?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Bridges of Madison County. Oh, I missed that. One True Thing. Missed that. Emmy Award winner. Star of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 87, I didn't know that was a long time ago, she was the highest paid actress at that time, $4 million a film.
And it's gone way up since then.
That it has. Yes. Bernardsville, New Jersey. 2 younger brothers. I would imagine from her chart that she actually liked them. That's where her harmony is. Father, pharmaceutical company executive. One might wonder if this chart wasn't off time-wise.
Mhm.
Maybe Neptune is actually in the 4th,
Mm.
but it
And-
was a time
And Venus
birth.
being right on the ascendant.
So, age 12, her mother, commercial artist, Moon in Taurus in the 10th house. Mom drives her to weekly singing lessons with Beverly Sills vocal coach. Age 15, takes off her glasses, bleaches her hair, and becomes a cheerleader, honor student, harmonious 3rd house. So if you just look at one factor, you miss things. And homecoming queen. Vassar, 1967, star of the drama department, Pisces on the 9th house, harmonious Neptune. And then she went on to Yale. Neither of these are
Small schools.
small schools, yes,
Or insignificant.
exactly. In 3 years, no less than 40 roles. During this time, also developed an ulcer. High tension Uranus, 1 minute away from the sun in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is the dominant sign in the chart, and although it's harmonious, guess what? We all can turn harmony into discord. We have a special skill, and or we can turn discord into harmony. So the natal chart only shows the potential at the time of birth. One would certainly have to look at this period in her life in 1971 through 74 to see what aspects were going on involving the 1st house. Could be that semi-square from Pluto to Uranus, the acid buildup. Graduated in 1975, moved to Manhattan, made her professional stage debut, made her film debut in Julia, 1977, Deer Hunter, 1978. There you have it. Do you ever hear about her family?
No.
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 Only once when there was some discussion about apples and alar, that chemical, and she
Oh.
testified before Congress about it. Or she went to was a speaker at a Congress hearing and they asked her questions because she was all for organic farming methods and that alar poisoned her children, in a sense. So that's the only time.
Moon in Taurus in the 10th house. What I did not include in the bio here is prior to getting married. She was with someone in Manhattan where she lived with a man for some years who did die of cancer.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So that answers the question.
Of the secret sorrow.
Yeah, both secret sorrow, but also Saturn ruling the 7th house. That there becomes, that one can have a spouse that has illness or becomes, I hate to say it, a burden, but where there are responsibilities incurred through a mate.
Christopher, remember we were talking about Pluto in the 1st house and how it could mean that you're over intense about your own appearance and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, she's an actor, so obviously she cares about her appearance, but I've never heard of her being
Reconstructed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
either she has the most sworn to secret plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills or Connecticut, or that's something she hasn't done, where what she's probably done possibly is just always pushed herself. And of course, what happens is she morphs in all of her different roles. She
She really is.
physically
Becomes-
changes.
yeah,
Yeah, she becomes
her
that.
Mhm.
Yes, Barbara?
I need to make a correction, I misspoke. It was Alice Marie that guessed Meryl Streep.
Oh, great job, Alice Marie. I'll give you the gold star. All right, it's now 8 o'clock. I don't think there's anything left on my bio. Nope. So,
Good.
any, thank you. Thank you all
I
for
really
coming.
enjoyed this class.
Oh, good. Yes, Barbara.
Could you make your announcements again about the next classes? There were several people that tuned in.
Okay, for those of you who tuned in late, our next class is not until September 1st through November 17th. 12 weeks of delineation using declination. So come back then. Between now and then, we have an incredible convention going on here in Albuquerque in 2 months, June 24th through 26th. It's going to be all on Tarot, the Silver Key, in honor of our new colored deck. And it's going to be fantastic. So be here for that, if you can. All right, thank you all for coming. This was great having you here.